Hi, everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful, what is this, Thursday now? No, Wednesday.
Wednesday.
I don't even know where we are in the week right now, but I'm so excited to have us joined with Tanya Canaday this morning. She's going to tell us a little bit about herself and her background, and we are going to get into some good stuff today on fertility clinics, which is a great topic that's really relevant for really any surrogacy journey. A lot of different types of involvement there. So I'm really excited to get into some of those topics today. So Tanya, can you tell us a little bit about your professional background as well as your current role?
Absolutely. Thanks, Hannah, for letting me come and join your live here. It's always really fun to reach out to the patients and connect. It's really important. So I've worked in the fertility space for 14 years now. And I've done all of the different aspects of it, starting in the laboratory, blood draws, processing sperm samples. And then I moved to the third party part of things, which is surrogacy and egg donation. I moved to that about 10 years ago. Dr. Folk and I built an amazing program here in Utah and have expanded that to the Nevada Center as well, which is in Vegas. And we have an incredible program of over 300 egg donors, and we do probably about 30 surrogate embryo transfers per month. And so we have a really, really big program that helps lots of people all over the world.
Wow, that is a high volume of folks that you're working with. So you definitely have this down to a science, quite literally, it sounds like.
We really do.
Can you tell us then a little bit about the Utah Fertility Center? I know you had just explained that you've kind of expanded into Nevada now as well. What's the history there?
So Dr. Folk had the opportunity. So he actually started the clinic here in just a little south of Salt Lake City, Utah. And when I started with him, I was the 8th employee. And we found that we want to make access to care available to people. And that has to do with the geography. So we started in this little center just south of Salt Lake City. And then we put a center in Salt Lake. And then we went all the way up to Idaho Falls. And then all the way down through St. George. And then Vegas has a lot of opportunities down there for families. It's a good place for international families and domestic families to fly into. So he went ahead and got into that Vegas clinic down there and took that over so that way we would have availability for families because flights are cheap into Vegas. It's just a good hub. It's a little bit easier for people to access than Salt Lake City is.
Yeah, so it sounds like accessibility and, like you had mentioned before, connection are really important aspects of your work. So can you talk a little bit about that connection piece? At what point let's start with intended parents. At what point in the intended parents' journey are they reaching out to you? Are you getting connected? How do you fit in with that whole process?
Sure, absolutely. So intended parents come at different times. Sometimes agencies refer them over, but most of the time they connect with us at the very beginning. They're talking to us about egg donation and wanting to figure out if they're going to create embryos with their own eggs and sperm, or are they needing egg donation? What is it that they need? So they often meet with us at the very beginning of the process so that way we can really go through how to get those embryos in the freezer for them so that way they're available to work with their surrogate. So we scoop them up as soon as they're ready. Sometimes, like I had mentioned, agencies send them. Sometimes they find us just directly. Sometimes attorneys send them to us, but or they just come to us through Google Ads or what have you. But the minute that we get them, the most important thing is that we begin to start a relationship with them. Trust is everything in this process. They must feel like the clinic and the agency and the surrogate are all people that they can work with and trust, that are all working in their best interest to get that baby into their household.
That's I mean, that's really the goal at the end of the day, right? It's a long journey, but they get there eventually. So, do you then? So when the surrogates get involved, is that typically then after matching, and then how do they get? They just get connected because it's the intended parents who had found you first. Is that typically how it works?
Absolutely. So once a family has embryos is usually when they begin matching with the surrogate. Once we get that match sheet or find out that a surrogate is interested, we are reviewing their medical records. We also want a relationship with the surrogate. So it's really important that we do a medical interview and a social interview with them. We really want to know, why are they doing this? We want to know, what are their fears? We want them to be able to talk through the medical aspects of this. What are their risks? What legally, how does that process work? We won't give legal advice, but we do understand how the process works. We want to give them some of those important pieces of that. We really want them to understand big picture. What does this mean for your life? What are the steps of it? Relationship is everything. And so creating that relationship with the surrogate so she feels safe, she feels cared about, she feels valued, helps her through the process. And it also helps the intended parent families as well, because they also should feel cared about and valued and appreciated. So with that, then we can put it all together and everyone feels heard. And the relationship with their coordinator here in the office is that glue that holds everyone together until that surrogate is graduated out to their OB.
I really love that perspective. Because I myself was a surrogate last year, so coming into it with the fertility clinic, I think it's really easy for the surrogate to feel like they've kind of jumped in a little bit later in the game, because it is typically the intended parents who have that relationship first. I didn't want to bother anybody or ask a silly question, so I really love that you all are very proactive about making sure that everyone's feeling respected and heard and safe, I think, is really the key at the end of the day. So I love that.
Everybody comes in with different fears. The surrogate's fear of coming in later in the game and not having the relationship. And who is the clinic working for? We're working for everyone towards that baby. And so making sure that she feels heard and respected, as well as the intended parent, so that they also often feel a little lost and confused, because we're talking to the surrogate a lot when we're actually planning the embryo transfer. So making sure that they're in all of the communication and that is very seamless, so that we're all a team working on it together rather than bits and pieces for different people.
Mm-hmm. And then on the agency side, it's also the agency's job to make sure that everybody's kind of having that team atmosphere going in. So yes, it's really a kind of a dream team making it work. So that's a fantastic perspective.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I love about Family Source Consultants is you guys take that relationship very seriously and are really good at facilitating that relationship and that communication and that continuity for everyone all the way through. So you guys do an excellent job with that.
Yes, I that's been my experience, at least, and I'm glad to hear that that's kind of what our reputation is as well. So speaking of kind of relationship building, specifically regarding like geography, we know that intended parents kind of come from all over. We know that surrogates come from all over. And you had mentioned before having accessibility to an airport is important as well for a fertility center. So who is typically flying in to you? Is it intended parents who are mostly local to you and then surrogates flying in? Do you work with intended parents from everywhere? How does that work?
Well, we do. We work with intended parents everywhere, all over Europe and the Middle East and Asia and Australia and New Zealand. We have people coming from all over the world to us, plus all of our domestic friends as well. So lots of people all throughout the United States come to us, Canada, South America. We've had patients from all over the world. And so that airport is really important. And also, if somebody's coming in from elsewhere, what if they live in Arizona and they love to ski? come on over and see us in Salt Lake because we've got some of the most amazing ski resorts in the world. Or maybe you really love Vegas and shows and all of the lights and glitter and all of that, then you can go there as well. So we want to make sure that it's accessible to families. Sometimes there's a huge cost difference in the flights, or there's just an interest difference. And so we want to make sure that we are able to meet those needs for all families, whether they be domestic families or international families. And if it's a family coming in to create embryos with their own eggs, they're going to have a lot of time. And do they want that time in Vegas? Do they want that time in Salt Lake City? It depends on their interest level, but we would want them to come to the clinic about the 8th day of medications and stay about 7 days so that we can do our very, very best care for a family who's using their own eggs. And so that gives them a lot of time wherever they want to choose to spend their holiday or their vacation while they're doing their medical care as well.
Yeah, I think that's so good to know that geography, you're not bound by geography necessarily as far as choosing a fertility clinic. So, and same goes for agency. I know we talk about that all the time. We're working with families from all over the world as well. But we know that you don't have to come see the agency typically at all, whereas there are in-person visits clearly to the clinic. So with that in mind, then, what is some of the criteria? Now knowing that geography isn't something that an intended parent necessarily needs to be looking at, as I only need to find a clinic that's local to me. When they're doing those initial searches, what types of things should they be looking for to make sure that the clinic that they're going with is a match for them?
Absolutely. So there's a few different things. As we've already talked about, is trust and relationship. If you do not trust the people you're working with, this whole process is going to be miserable for you. So I recommend that you interview a couple of fertility centers. You feel like it's somebody that you can trust and you can believe in. Cost really matters as well. When you are interviewing fertility centers, what is their fees? So the nice thing about where we're located is we're not in the middle of New York City. And so the standard of living costs here are much cheaper. So we're really able to give that discount of where we are located to the patients. So we're really cost mindful so that way, when patients are looking at their budget, does that make sense to them? What is available for them for egg donation if they're having to use their eggs. That also is very, very important as families are choosing what is the right fertility center. And then, of course, flexibility and accessibility for their surrogates. If I were to recommend anything, another thing I would say is making sure that you're looking at or getting advice from other people about the pregnancy rates at that fertility center. Not all fertility centers are the same. The Utah, Nevada offices are in the top 5% of the world when it comes to pregnancy rates. And so it's a good place for you to go to get a baby. It's a good place to go to save money to get a baby, access to egg donation, and access to everyone as they're trying to move around from their different locations. So big picture, to kind of summarize all of that, find a fertility center with good pregnancy rates that you trust, that fits your budget, that has what you need. That's what I would recommend to any family.
That's fantastic advice. For the pricing, without getting too into the details, are there typically different ways that that's structured at different fertility centers? And what might some of the pros and cons be to the different fee structures?
Absolutely. And that is probably the most frequently asked question is, how much is this going to cost me? And the answer to that on a webinar is it's complex because everyone has a little bit different picture of what they're looking for. It costs differently if you have egg donation or using your own eggs. Are we planning it to watch a budget, or are we planning it to make sure that we pay a package deal? So there's different ways. So we do accept insurances for the people in the US that are using insurances like Progeny and Carrot and things like that, or even regular insurances like Cigna and United Healthcare and things like that. We accept those. For international families, and sometimes for families that live domestically that don't have any insurance, they can either pay for each step as they go through each step, or we have packages available. And the packages look different per family. We have unlimited embryo transfer packages. We have packages that are refund packages. Everyone has a different need. And so we're really looking to meet that need, where some people would like to pay as they go, or people would like to pay a big package that just covers everything so they know what their budget is going to look like. So we have different price structures depending on what your needs are. We have the most expensive where you could get a refund of your money back if you don't get a baby. And we have the others where maybe you just receive 5 eggs or 6 eggs or something like that to try to save your budget. But we're going to help you maneuver through those according to your family needs. Are you a same-sex male couple using both sperm samples? Are you a single woman looking just to get a baby and don't have a gender preference? What is it that you're looking for? And then we can help you maneuver through choosing the right egg donor, choosing the right package price for you. So it's impossible for us to give that to you on a webinar, but we would love to meet with you, talk about your needs, and find the package that meets your needs best.
Mm-hmm. And then, so cost is obviously one of the more commonly asked questions from the intended parents. What types of frequently asked questions are you getting from surrogates that they should be considering in advance?
So surrogates often ask, how do I know what family to match with? And I would really focus less on embryo quality and things like that, because some people will choose how many embryos do they have, what's their embryo quality for highest chances of success. The truth is for the surrogate, really meeting that intended parent family and saying, is this somebody that I feel like I can communicate well with, feel well respected by, and be able to collaborate for the next year and a half or 2 years? Because it's typically at least 2 years from match to once you've recovered and baby has moved on and your body feels back to normal. So really thinking, can I feel connected to these people for 2 years? That's what I would always focus on for the surrogate, because even with all of those other points, if you have a close relationship, everyone feels valued and loved in this process. And a surrogate, being the angel that she is, it's willing to do this sacrifice for a family, making sure that the family is the type of personality that will do the same sacrifice for them.
Yeah, so it's always just coming back to relationships and connections. So
absolutely,
at the end of the day, right? Are there things though that the surrogate can do to increase the likelihood of the transfer working?
That's a really great question, and it's super commonly asked as well. You know, there's a bunch of things on the internet. If you eat pineapple core or McDonald's French fries or pomegranate juice or whatever it is this week that is the big thing, the truth is not really. What you need to do is you need to follow the instructions of the fertility center. If you're not sure, ask a lot of questions, making sure that you fully understand. Don't assume that you understand. All you can do is what has been asked of you. Everything else is Mother Nature. So can you increase your odds just by following what you're asked to do? Other than that, there's a lot of things we don't have control of in life, and this is one of them. And so just doing what you can, so at the end of the day, you feel like you followed every instruction, and then it's really out of our hands. So there really isn't anything additional except for please pay attention and please just do what you've been asked to do. Ask lots of questions.
Are the medical, like the medication calendars and things like that, the schedules and the regimens that folks need to do, is that different for everyone then? These instructions that you're talking about, do they vary from person to person, or is there kind of a blanket, this is the way that we know it works, so just do this, that it goes?
That's a really great question as well, Hannah. So We start out with a template because we have never worked with that person and don't know how their uterus is going to respond. So we start with a template, but then we adjust that template according to how that person is responding. So it is very, very, very focused directly on the surrogate itself. It's very individualized, but we have to have a template to start with, and then we'll adjust according to what those response levels are. If we have to do a second cycle, it looks very specifically to what her needs would be for that surrogate. And so it is different for everyone. So it's not like you can Google your friend, send a message to your friend on Facebook and say, they're telling me to do this. Is this what I'm supposed to do? Please ask the clinic specifically because it's very specific to you.
I think that's a fantastic take-home message. I know I'm in several Facebook groups and other online communities for surrogates specifically, and there are some of those kind of questions that come up a lot of like, I haven't gotten my updated medication calendar. What do you all think? And it's really not a crowdsourcing kind of topic in my experience. So
yeah, very, very personalized.
Definitely. So in okay, so then for intended parents who are just starting the journey, are there, is there any advice that we haven't really gotten into that you think? I know we got into the communication and relationship building and things like that. Are there other words of wisdom that you'd have for intended parents just starting out?
So I think one of the hardest things for intended parents just starting out is understanding the fertility language. They're kind of pushed into this industry, and everyone has just a little bit different language, if you will, that they use. Even though we're speaking English, it's just a slightly different language. And so really having a mentor, hopefully if you can find one, whether that be Family Source Consultants or the clinic or whoever it is, finding somebody that can help you unravel that language. We don't even realize we're doing it, but we use a lot of acronyms and a lot of different things. And when you are comparing egg donors through an agency or through a fertility center, what is it that they're talking about? What is the packages for the surrogates? How do I compare those things? So really what I would recommend to a new family is find someone that, again, relationship that you trust, that can help you unravel the language. And so that you can make sure you're comparing apples to apples instead of apples to pomegranates, because it's going to look very, very different. And that way you will go in with as much knowledge as you can have to make sure that you're going to have your needs met most, instead of feeling a little bit confused. So find someone that you trust that can mentor you and help you go through the process.
Of course. And we've talked a lot about, intended parents and surrogates, and not enough about egg donations. So are there different things then that either recipient parents or egg donors need to be considering in choosing a fertility center to work with?
Absolutely. So for egg donors, really choosing a place that has a good reputation, that is going to take really good care of you. Again, egg donors are angels, as are surrogates that are really doing a lot of sacrifice for this, and making sure that they're working with a center that they feel like will medically take really good care of them. When it comes to an intended parent or a recipient that's working with an egg donor, depends on where you're getting your egg donor from. If you are working with an agency, most of those agency donors haven't already done the medical testing and stuff. So understanding what has been done and what needs to be done, and working with a fertility center, what testing have they done, and understanding what does that mean. So for example, here in our clinic, we've already done all of the medical, the psychological, the drug screening. All of the donors on our database have already been approved medically for you. Now, there's some really amazing agencies that have, I believe you guys have egg donation available as well. understanding what still needs to be done with each donor. Has this donor had the testing done to be approved to move forward? That can affect your financial situation. It can affect the big picture of the cycle that's moving forward. So asking a lot of questions and understanding again what you're comparing to. Is this a donor that has cycled before? Has she been tested? How is that going to affect your finances when you're talking about their reimbursement, their testing, their ability to move forward? So having an understanding of what all of that means is really going to make a difference in your overall expectations of the outcome.
Mm-hmm. And how many egg donations then, like how many egg donors are you all working with?
We have 300 on our database that are already tested and approved, ready to move forward. And so we have a lot of donors in our area here. We have a lot of Northern European looking donors. We do have some Asian, Middle Eastern, African American. So we have a variety, but I would say the largest portion is ethnicity of Northern European.
That you're giving a perfect segue because our next our next webinar coming up in a couple of weeks is specifically on diversity in egg donations. So I hope you tune in for that one because I think it's such an important topic. That again, I feel like egg donation in general is something, you know, I particularly didn't know a ton about. It's just not out there quite as much, and I'm so glad that we're able to get the word out about it. So.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's really overwhelming for recipients and intended parent families to try to unravel the language, try to understand what are we talking about and how important is this test and how important is that test, and trying to work through it. So again, finding a mentor that can explain it to you and help you work through what's in your best interest, because everyone's family has a different picture of what that's going to look like.
Mm-hmm. And we did have someone, because we are live right now, we did have someone chime in on Facebook and just wanted clarification on the medication calendar. So the question is that nobody has the same medication calendar. Is that right? And I think the answer that we had talked about is there, you know, it sounds like there's a kind of baseline template that gets started, but then from there, everyone's does vary a bit. Is that right?
Absolutely true. Yeah. So there's that template, and then we adjust that template according to your body's response. And so that then it's individualized for you.
Perfect. And so again, thank you for the clarification. Thank you so much for the information here. And if folks do want to get in touch with more questions, where can they find more information from you?
Absolutely. So they can definitely reach out to you guys, and then you guys can forward them to us. Also, you can reach out to our office. You can reach out to me individually. Probably might be best if I just send a message that gives you a link to connect to. Right. But Utah Fertility Center, Nevada Fertility Center, you can even just call up the clinic, but I'll give you some contact information in the chat to add to all of this.
Absolutely. We'll link to all of that in the notes afterwards as well. So when this is posted on all of our social media sites and sent out on our website, all of that contact information will be there. So so thank you so much again for your time today, Tanya. We really appreciate your insight and your expertise from your years in the field. And I hope that our audience gained some unique information into the world of third-party reproduction.
Thank you for having me, Hannah. I really appreciate the opportunity to reach out to families. As I've talked this whole way through, it is so important to have relationship and be able to feel like you can trust someone. So if I can scoop up a family that can feel trust and love and taken care of, then this entire half hour was more than worthwhile.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much. And again, I think it's so great to be hearing those sorts of things from kind of the science side of the house. I think it kind of has a reputation of like, well, we just got to get the things done. And but there's so much of that kind of, soft skills and the communication and the contact and the relationship building. So I'd love to have that perspective and love working with folks in the field who have that perspective. So thank you for being one of them. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Have a great one, everyone.
Thank you.